Welcome back to Dan Lane Dreams Homestead. Today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite subjects, which is incubating and hatching emu eggs.
So this is one of the subjects that we get the most questions on. So we thought we'd just do an updated video on everything we know and would like to share with you about incubating and hatching emu eggs. First thing is, of course, finding your emu eggs. And in our last video, we told you that we were going to try to get footage of our girl Diamond Destiny laying an egg for you. So we did as we promised. We went out there and we recorded her getting ready to lay her eggs, and this is the footage we got. Alright, you guys, we came out nice and early tonight because we didn't want to miss it. Diamond Destiny's already started pacing the fence and she's doing her drumming, so it's looking like it's a good sign that we will have another egg tonight and that we didn't miss it. Edwina here is trying to figure out what's going on. You might know that she's going to lay an egg tonight. Let's see what happens. So apparently tonight she's actually going to wait till the sun is fully set. She's still pacing. It's been over an hour now, and hopefully she'll go into the shelter and lay that egg soon. Now, at this point, it was pitch black. We've been out there for 3 hours, over 3 hours, and she just stopped drumming, she stopped pacing back and forth, and she was not going to lay an egg on camera for you all. So finally we gave up. It was like 8:30, we still hadn't eaten dinner or anything, and we came inside. And the next morning when we went to check, sure enough, she had laid an egg in the shelter. Apparently she just did not want you to see it. Luckily, I do have footage on my cell phone of earlier in the season when she did lay an egg, and we're going to go ahead and play that for you even though it's not her recent eggs. you do not have a breeding pair of your own, there are still other ways to get emu eggs. First off, I would definitely recommend, if you have Facebook, to look in some local Facebook groups or some emu owner Facebook groups. Those you're going to have a lot of knowledgeable people in there, and you're less likely to get scammed. There are still a lot of scammers on Facebook trying to sell you emu eggs. So look out for the signs. You never want to pay through PayPal, friends and family. You never want to give the money up front unless they're shipping the eggs, of course. But I always recommend that you ask them for video of them holding the emu egg and saying your name, or an emu chick. This way you know for sure that they do have eggs in their hands. A lot of people will take photos from Google, or they'll steal photos from people on Facebook, and then they'll post those as their chicks or their eggs for sale. They'll take your money and you'll never hear from them again.
Didn't they take one of our photos and do that too?
They did, actually, yes. So they did have some photos of our chicks at one point. So you want to be very careful for scammers. You can also purchase emu eggs through eBay. A lot of times they're going to be a little bit more expensive, and again, you don't know if you're getting scammed, but I guess you can look at the reviews for those people. Another way to find them is also locally. There's a lot of times in a lot of areas, people locally that have emu eggs. So if you're part of any farm groups or any egg hatching groups in your area, I would also post them there to see if anyone knows of anyone with emus in your area that you can actually go and pick up your eggs and pay on the spot. So those are some ways that you can get your emu eggs. Once you have your emu eggs in hand, you're ready to start the incubation process. But first, you want to have your eggs sit in the room they're going to incubate in for at least 24 hours. This kind of acclimates them to the temperature in the room, and it's not such a shock going from maybe possibly very cold to a very warm temperature in the incubator. Plus it gives them the yolk and everything time to settle and everything before you start to incubate.
Yeah, because egg laying season here in the States, it's pretty cold. So you want to make sure you give them time to acclimate to the room.
Yes, when we got our first eggs last season, we had them shipped during the big giant freeze that happened all over the United States. They got caught in Kansas City for multiple days out in a truck. And so when they got to us, they were super cold. And if we would have put them right in the incubator, I think it really would have been disastrous. But luckily they all came out good, and we had, I think, a 50% hatch rate out of those, which is pretty good for a styrofoam incubator. All right, now that you have your eggs and they've set, hopefully you've already purchased your incubator, because you don't want to be trying to order your incubator and it get delayed and now your egg is sitting out for however many days. It's sat for however many days at the breeder's house. You want to get it in the incubator as soon as possible to keep your likelihood of it hatching higher. Last season we hatched in the styrofoam GQF incubators. That worked out pretty well for us. We got it, like I said, a 50% hatch rate. We wound up hatching out 7 birds. One developed and then an 8th one developed all the way, but then had a deformity causing it not to hatch. Then I think we only had 4 actually that didn't hatch.
I don't remember.
Anyway, that is a great way to go if you're only hatching like 2-4 eggs max. With that incubator, you do have to hand rotate them. There are 2 different options that we know of egg turners that come with that model. The first is the one that we have, and the eggs just lay right here in this, and then this rotates and brings it back this way and then brings it back. And it rotates your eggs, rolling them. Unfortunately, this is not strong enough for an emu egg, so this is not going to work to rotate your emu eggs. The second is yellow trays that rotate back and forth, and the eggs sit inside of it. It is also made for chicken eggs. They probably have some smaller ones for quail eggs and possibly some bigger ones for turkey eggs, but an emu egg is not going to fit in your incubator standing up like this. So the only option for the styrofoam incubator really is to hand rotate your eggs, and that's probably going to be the case for any small incubator. The other option is if you have a cabinet incubator. Those are going to be a lot larger, and a lot of times you can get trays or have it built for emu eggs. In that case, it's going to lay in the tray and it's going to rotate your egg this way, and then it's going to rotate your egg back this way. That's great, but you do still want to go in once a day and rotate it all the way over. This helps make sure that it's evenly rotating, and it's also going to help by giving it more air circulation. Emu eggs need a lot of air circulation in them for them to be successfully hatched. By opening the incubator once a day, taking them out, rotating them. It's giving them a little bit more airflow in there, and it's going to increase your hatch rate. So you have your incubator, you have your eggs, you're ready to start incubating. What we typically do is we mark each of our emu eggs. Since we have a breeding pair, we like to mark which number it is that she laid. So this was the 26th egg that Diamond Destiny laid. We marked it right there so that we know, okay, she's laid 26 eggs or she's laid 30 eggs. That way we can keep track of how many eggs our emus can lay. When Wild Style lays her eggs, we put WS on those. So then we can differentiate between which breeding pairs the eggs laid from. That way if somebody later on wants to buy 2 chicks that could later breed, we know that they're from different stock. They're from different moms, they're from different dads, and we're not gonna have any mixed lines. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put an arrow. This is gonna help you remember which way to rotate your eggs. That way you don't just keep rotating them the same way. You don't want to keep rotating them the same way. You always want to go halfway and then back the other way. And you're going to keep rotating just like that. When you rotate your eggs, you usually want to do it in odd numbers. That way it's never on the same side for a longer period of time. So say you go to bed and now this egg is going to lay on one side for 12 hours. You don't want it always to lay this way for 12 hours. One day it's gonna lay this way for 12 hours, but then the next day you want it to lay on this side for that 12 hours. We typically do 3 times a day. So I do it when I wake up, around lunchtime, and then right before we go to bed. Now that's if you're hand rotating your eggs in your incubator. If you have a cabinet incubator, that's gonna do all the rotating back and forth in the correct amount of time for you. You will just want to do 1 full rotation at night. So the arrows are still helpful. That way you know which way you rotated it each day. One of the things I get the most questions on is temperature and humidity. You want to set up your incubator to be 97.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And the humidity should be right around 35%. If you have the humidity too high on emu eggs, they will drown the chicks. Emu eggs are really porous, so they will absorb the moisture and the water into their shell, and it can drown your eggs. I've seen multiple people who drown their eggs because they were told to raise the humidity to like 60% right before hatch. Of course, this is a common thing if you're going to be hatching chicken eggs or duck eggs that about 6 days before hatch, you lock down your incubator, meaning you do not open it, you do not touch it, but you raise the humidity up quite a bit before you lock it down. Emu eggs are not the same. Emu eggs, you're going to rotate these until hatch day. Basically, if you hear an internal pip, that means you're starting to hear squeaking, but they haven't broken the outer shell, then you're gonna keep rotating. Some people either stop at that point, at the internal pip, or they stop when they break through the shell. We kind of go back and forth. Either way is fine. Internal pip, it's only be 1 to 3 days before they actually fully hatch. The flip side of having your humidity too high is having it too low, in which case they're probably just gonna cook in your egg. Plus, as they get close to hatch, that inner membrane, that inner lining, will shrink wrap, and so it's just going to tighten on them because it's not moist and pliable anymore, and it's just going to tighten them to the point that they can no longer hatch because they can't move around in there. So you want to make sure your humidity is right around between 30 and 36%. Like I said, we try to keep it right at 35. I know a lot of people who live in a more humid climate have a really hard time with this because it's humid. And it's humid here, especially in the spring. We get days where it's super warm and our humidity skyrockets. And then what do? Well, in the styrofoam incubator, you typically pour your water into the water troughs underneath. Well, it's pretty difficult to then remove the water if your humidity spikes and you have all of these eggs in there. So what we do instead is we use small mason jars or small little measuring cups. Shot glasses would be a good option as well. And that is what we use to bring our humidity up to level. That way, if it gets too high, we can remove one of those, or we can add water, or things like that to get our humidity at the right level. Okay, so it doesn't matter how much you fill those up because it's going to be surface volume. How much of the surface is covered in water. So adding more water to one little jar isn't going to help any. It's not going to bring your humidity up higher. It's adding another cup.
So you really only want to top off your, shot glasses or humidity cups when you leave for the day or you go to bed for the evening. That way, as the water's evaporating during the evening, you still have water, surface water, so that the humidity can stay consistent.
Yes, if your jar dries up of all the water, then obviously your humidity is going to drop because there's no more water in that area. Now I get a lot of comments that it's super humid here and I can't get my incubator to go lower than 40% humidity. All right, so we have two options for you. One is we use this USB fan. This is typically, I believe, used for a computer.
Yeah, some people use it for like cooling where you sit at a desk all day. So it just plugs into a USB a USB plug, and then you just turn it on to the speed you want, but it's used just to move air.
This is a great option because like I said before, emu eggs need a lot of air circulation. This provides that because styrofoam incubator is a still air incubator. There's no air really flowing through it. So this helps with that, plus it helps bring the humidity down. The problem with using this is when you take your lid off to rotate your eggs, if you tilt it over, your fan falls off. If you forget to put the fan back, your humidity is going to skyrocket again. So always remember to make sure your fan is over the little hole on the top, on the lid of the incubator.
Yeah, so our styrofoam incubator has two air ports, as you call it. They're like little red plugs that plug into styrofoam. We have both of them open,
yes.
And we have this fan blowing into one port and then expelling humidity out of the other.
The other option is rice. Rice will help absorb that moisture in your incubator. So again, we use small mason jars or we use small measuring cups and we fill them with rice and then we place them throughout the incubator. This helps absorb that water and it brings your humidity right down. So these are both great options to bringing down your humidity. All right, time to put your eggs in the incubator. We're going to go ahead and write on our last two eggs. Now, there's a few different methods that people use for writing on their eggs. One is tape. You can tape right here on the egg and then write your information on the egg. A lot of people actually use this method. That way their shells stay beautiful and green. And some people like to use these for crafts, including myself. Or if they don't hatch, you can blow them out and a lot of people like to engrave or carve out the eggs. The problem that we ran into with that is that we've had eggs pip right at the tape. The tape has stopped them from hatching out of the egg because they're having a hard time getting through the tape. So then when I went to go help, then I'm now pulling a bunch of the egg and breaking the egg more, which really needs to be their job. As they hatch out of that egg, they're gaining strength to live in the real world, to be able to walk, to be able to hold up their neck. All of these things, all these muscles they need, they're gaining by hatching out of their egg. If you're helping them crack the egg open, then they're not getting those much needed muscle skills.
Yeah, you pretty much just need to sit on your hands at the point of hatch. There's a very small chance that you need to intervene. But if you do, there's a potential that they could develop incorrectly, or there may be a reason why they weren't able to actually hatch out of the egg fully. We helped Gerald out of her egg, and I mean, coincidentally, she is probably our most deformed bird, but still a pretty cool bird.
Yes, we still love her and we're glad that we helped her because she stalled in hatching. She had been trying to hatch for 2 days and she wasn't making any more progress. So at that point we knew, okay, either we're going to lose her or we're going to help her out of the egg and still potentially lose her, but then she still has a chance of making it. So like Raymond said, she's pretty deformed. Her head is slowly moving, I think, to the side of her body. She's got a hump like a camel. She's fun to look at. But if we hadn't helped her out, then she would have died. But if you can help it, don't help them out of their egg. So that's why we didn't like the tape. Some people do remove the tape when they start to hear the internal pip, and that works for them. But for us, we like to use the tape as a marker for what that egg is, so we can correspond it with the chick. Now, if multiple hatch out at the same time, then it's a little bit harder to keep track of the egg. The other option is chalk. Now we've used chalk quite a bit to write on the eggs because that wipes off cleanly and easily for using later. My problem with that is when I would rotate the eggs, I was always wiping off the chalk. Now you can be more careful than me and still use chalk. The option we're choosing is a metallic Sharpie. This doesn't wipe off. It's a small area that's going to make it where I can't use that small area, but that's okay for us because we're not using it as a carving egg. We're actually turning the shells into small little necklaces, and so we don't need those little tiny spots. So this was egg number 27. All right, so that's how it looks with the metallic Sharpie. And then we can also do one in chalk. It's gonna be number 28.
You know, you might not even have to really mark them that much anymore because we have the tray. You can just label which eggs are in the tray.
Yeah. All right, and that is with the chalk. if you're using a cabinet incubator, then I would say probably about 6 days before your hatch date, you want to go ahead and move them into some kind of hatcher or a brooder or a styrofoam incubator or something else. Because if you have an incubator that's automatically rotating back and forth and you have lots of eggs in there, you can't just shut that rotator off for them to hatch. Number one, you don't want your chicks to hatch up on the top level and then get their feet stuck down there, then fall, then break their neck. All kinds of things can go wrong. Some of them do have like a hatcher tray at the bottom, and so if you have that, then that's a great option. We take them from our cabinet incubator and we do move them into our styrofoam incubator. Now you want to make sure your styrofoam incubator is set up before you put eggs in or before you bring the eggs over for chicks to hatch, because you want the humidity already at the right level and you want the temperature already at the right level. Now once you put your eggs in, it is going to fluctuate because you're adding a different element in there. So you do want to continue to check on them very often and adjust accordingly. In our last video, we were asking the question, why aren't our emu eggs hatching? And this is something we learned that's extremely important, is make sure your thermometers work. The problem with incubating more than about 4 eggs in a styrofoam incubator is that it just cannot maintain the humidity and the heat with that many eggs in it. We started off this season in the styrofoam incubator before we bought the cabinet incubator because we weren't really sure if we would get eggs this season and how many we would really get.
Yeah, we didn't expect it at all. I walked out one day and surprised there was an egg laying next to a green tarp, so it was kind of camouflage, but we were pleasantly surprised.
Yes, but because we weren't prepared for it, the incubator was just going crazy. It was fluctuating up and down, like by the hour. I was having to adjust that thing for the entire period. But as we started getting to the point where we had them in this cabinet incubator and then moving them over, we were realizing that it was still shooting up to like 100 and 101 degrees, and so they were quickly having to try to cool off the incubator. Well, it turned out that it was not shooting up. It was our thermometers were just, for some reason, glitching and going crazy, and they're still doing it. So we wound up buying new thermometers and finding out, okay, it really was the thermometers. So how do you know if your thermometers are working correctly? Well, your styrofoam incubator should come with one of these. This is a mercury thermometer. If it doesn't come with one of these, I suggest purchasing one separately. They're pretty inexpensive. They're very small. This is going to be accurate. So if your digital thermometers aren't matching this, right around 1 degree maybe off, then they probably aren't working. I know that if they aren't saying the correct temperature, you can put them outside in really cold weather and it kind of restarts them, but it was not working for us. These thermometers worked fantastic for us last year, and we've been using them all year long for all of our hatching because basically our thermometers have been going all year. We haven't had a problem until now. So I'm not sure if they're just past their expiration date after just a year or what's going on. We did purchase some new thermometers and those ones are right on with this. And so now when I open the incubator, I'll see, and those old ones are still saying 100, 100.3, 100.6, but the new one is saying right on track with this. So make sure your thermometer is right on track with this. That we also feel is a good indicator, since the temperature is right on, that hopefully that means the humidity is right on also. Because also the old ones, the humidity is going crazy and we're constantly adjusting the water, when in actuality, there's a good chance that the humidity was actually just fine. All right, let's go ahead and put these eggs in our incubator. Okay, so here's our cabinet incubator. So with this one, we're just gonna turn off our egg rotators and we're going to level those out. Now with a cabinet incubator, you have quite a range of area for the heat and the humidity to really circulate. So as long as each tray is about 1 degree or half a degree from each other, with one of them being right at 97, then you should be good. Right now we only have eggs left in our top 2 trays, but typically we will have a thermometer on each level so that we can keep track of what the temperature and what the humidity is at that level and know if we need to adjust anything. Okay, so we can pull the trays out here and then we can rotate them. We can take them out and whistle to them, see if they're rocking, all that kind of stuff. And then we have our little thermometer right here telling us what the temperature is and what the humidity is. We're gonna go ahead and put these eggs right here in the middle. It's saying it's 96.4 on this level, but again, this is one of those thermometers that aren't keeping it 100%. Ready to go. Now is the fun part. You've made it 50 days. That is how long your emu chick is going to incubate in his egg before he is ready to hatch. A chicken is 21 days. So this is considerably longer. And it's hard because a chicken egg, you can candle. You can put a flashlight up to it and you can see if anything is developing in that egg and if you are going to have a chick or not. An emu egg is not the same. It is basically a surprise until about 35 days. At 35 days, you can take an egg out of your incubator, put it on the counter, let it cool for a second, or put it on the floor. It's probably a smarter idea.
A flat surface that you're not going
to roll off of. So make sure it's secure. And then you can whistle at that egg. And a lot of times, not every time, but if there's a chick developing, it will typically wiggle and dance around inside the egg. Super fun to watch, super exciting, and that's probably one of my favorite parts because it's so exciting when they first start to wiggle and you know that you're actually successful and there is something developing in that egg. Then you have to wait again until right before it hatches, and then you might hear whistling in your egg. If you hear whistling in your egg, you know it has broken through that inner membrane. Let me show you what the inner membrane looks like. So this is an egg that has hatched, and right here, this white part, that would be the inner membrane, the inner lining of your shell. When they have broken through that part, that is when you will start to hear whistling. So if you whistle to them, you'll hear like little squeaking. It's very faint, so you have to put it right up to your ear to hear it. But then you know that you are between 1 and 3 days from hatch. Typically, it's within 24 hours so. Luckily, we were able to catch that footage for you of this little chick hatching, so we're gonna show that to you now. It looks like it is already about 1/4 of the way out. And she's doing good. They break out a little bit and then they have to rest for a minute. It's exhausting. You saw in our last video when we tried to crack open the egg with his knife how hard that shell was. Her little beak right there. Hey baby. Her little foot right above her head. She's in the perfect position. Hey baby. You're doing good. You're doing so good. We're gonna close it up so she can stay warm as she tries to hatch out, keep the humidity levels up, and we'll check back on her in a few minutes. There you go.
Emu bear.
Hi, buddy.
Yeah, like we formed the egg, Mommy.
Yeah. There's lots of little bear.
You killed me. You killed me.
He's like, oh boy.
Can we go get a blanket already?
Disgusting, I have one.
Where?
Like, I want to stand up, Mommy.
Just gonna flip over back onto his feet. Help me. Help me.
Yeah, this one had headache.
He knows not.
Can you see him in the camera?
I can't. I can see him. Yeah, I can see him a little bit. I can see him, but I can't see his head very well. No, I can't see his head. Yeah, I can't see his head. He has no head.
Hey, baby.
Can we get camera?
No.
Secret. He was like, secret camera.
Like just putting his face in the camera. Headbutted the camera.
Owie.
My shirt.
So you can see we have the brooder all set up. If you watched our wooden brooder build a couple of videos ago that we keep in the garage, we use this low pile carpet for the emus. It's perfect, it's rubber on the bottom, and it's non-slip. It's great because even if it gets really wet from them spilling their water or pooping or whatever, it doesn't go through the carpet and it doesn't ruin our wood floors. We don't put anything on the carpet at first because number one, we don't want to put anything slippery where they're going to slip. And number two, we don't want to put shavings or anything right now because they're going to be curious and they're going to start pecking at things. And we don't want them to accidentally swallow the shavings. So we have just the dog crate, we have the carpet, and then we put a barrier of a short box around it. We cut down a box. Usually the flaps of the box is the perfect size for this. And then we just zip tie it on. This helps keep the poop on the carpet and not all over your floors. As they get older and they start running around, they're going to step in the poop, they're going to kick the poop. No matter how often you clean it, there's always going to be poop. So this works out perfectly. Also, when we start to have shavings and straw, it also helps keep that in as well. We just got this new heat lamp from, I believe it's Premier 1. I'll double check on that. And this has been perfect because it has this nice shield on the bottom there. When you use a heat lamp, if you use a glass heat lamp, the emus are going to peck at your heat lamp. They're curious. They want to see what everything is, and how they explore is by pecking. If they peck at your glass bulb, heat bulb, they will likely shatter it, and then they will eat the pieces. This will likely cause them to die. So we don't like to use a glass bulb. We were using a ceramic bulb for our heat lamps, and those are working pretty well, but they didn't quite get as warm as a full heat lamp with a glass bulb. So we started to explore other options, and this is what people suggested. It works perfectly. It gets very warm, but the plastic part down here does not get warm enough to burn them. So it keeps them away from burning their heads on the heat lamp, plus it keeps them from pecking at the heat lamp. So this has been a perfect solution for our emu chicks. We just have it hanging on with a pipe cleaner. It makes it easy. You could also do a zip tie, but this way we can adjust it easier. We can take it off, we can move it if we need it. So that's what's been working for us. But let's go get that sweet little baby chick out of the incubator and see how he's doing. open up. Here.
Here we go.
Hey, baby.
Now this is our favorite part of hatching emus, is snuggling with the sweet little babies afterwards. And it's usually a fight on who gets to snuggle them first, but I think Mo won out this time.
They're all wet. Crusty fridge.
Yeah, when you're ready.
Go ahead.
So this is our baby blonde emu that hatched out about 3 days ago. So within the first 3 days, the baby will have a full yolk belly. So the little emu will be eating and digesting the rest of the yolk that's in their belly. So they won't be interested in eating or drinking for the first 3 days. Now, sometimes they could be starting to get interested in pecking around. So that's why they kind of have food like littered around a little bit. But you want to make sure that the food and water is available, so that way when they do start to get the urge to eat and drink, that it's already available. Now, like most birds, you gotta kind of show them where the water's at. You know, you put you dip their beak right in the water, so they know where it's at. So to encourage drinking the water, we kind of put pieces of kale or spinach, something in the water that kind of has the contrast, so they know that there's something in there that might spark their interest, and that's how we introduce them to the water. So, but when they're this size, you just start them on regular chick starter feed that's non-medicated. So they don't need the medicated feed like other birds. So that's what we have here. We just have a chick starter and the water with a solution that has vitamins. It's a poultry booster. So we just put a couple drops in the water. That way it gives extra vitamins, vitamin E and things like that for the little chicks. So a lot of things that affect baby chicks is something called wry neck. So to address that wry neck issue, they won't be able to lift their neck, and eventually they end up passing because they can't control it. It's a lack of vitamins and minerals. So what we do to help try to curb that is to use that poultry booster additive to the water. Now you want to do that as their first drink of water. You want to have that in there already, because if they get older and then you decide to start adding it, they may not like it enough to where they won't drink. So we give it to them to begin with, so that way the only water they know is water that has the poultry booster in it. That way they don't know what regular clean water tastes like. They have to drink this stuff that almost looks like molasses as you're dripping it in there. So you want their taste buds to be acclimated to this as opposed to regular water, so that way they have no excuse not to drink it. Another thing that affects small little emus and other birds is a thing called splay legs. So this chick's legs are pretty much straightforward. They're under her body. Splayed leg, what happens is the legs are splayed out from the body, so they have no control over them. We made videos previously with our first bird, Richard. He was born with splayed leg. We tried our best to correct it, so you can watch the videos there about Richard. She's eating the lettuce in the water. That's good. Don't have any more lettuce in there though. There's a piece. It's in her mouth. Food. Here you go. You gotta swallow it. Want some more? Here you go. Swallow it. Put it down your throat. Well, if you have any other questions or comments, go ahead and just put them in the comment section there, and we'll try to answer them the best we can. And if you haven't, go ahead and like us and subscribe on Facebook and TikTok and other social media pages.